Is the timing coincidental?
Well, I don't know, but it shows that for 1,000 days they were wrong. You know, it was Ukraine that was invaded, and the idea that somehow acting in self-defense and carrying the war into your adversary's territory is escalatory means that Ukraine is entitled to self-defense a little bit, but not too much. I think this is part of the general strategic failure of the Biden administration, and whether it's 62 days left or 600 days left, it's a reflection of how poorly they have handled what really is a critical American national interest, which is making sure that unprovoked aggression, certainly on the continent of Europe, doesn't go unanswered.
So 62 days from now, Donald Trump takes office. He ran on ending the war in Ukraine and finding some type of negotiated settlement. Does this move make that harder or easier?
No, I don't think it makes it harder for Trump. I think he's prepared to put Ukraine in a very bad position very quickly. I think it's going to be a substantial victory for Putin if, for example, the ultimate settlement is along the lines proposed by Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance about 6 weeks ago, that Russia keeps the territory it won by this second unprovoked aggression, and that Ukraine doesn't get to join NATO. So I think if I'm Vladimir Putin, I'm eagerly awaiting the Trump inauguration.
The flip side to that, though, is that Vladimir Putin's been allowed to do sort of whatever he wanted during the Biden administration as well, without meaningful sanctions, without meaningful pushback. By that, I mean President Biden would not allow U.S. natural gas exports to Europe. He continues to refuse to sanction Russia's energy industry in a meaningful way, refuses to go after the Chinese businesses that help Russia. It seems as though both Donald Trump and Joe Biden are letting Vladimir Putin do what he wants in different ways.
Yeah, look, I think the Biden conduct of our assistance to Ukraine has failed in a strategic way. The real question is, how does America deal with protecting a vital national interest, which is security, stability on the continent of Europe against unprovoked aggression, when you've got a president who doesn't know how to do it? A lot of people, including many in the Republican Party, are saying, well, Biden's made a mess of it. We might as well give up Ukraine, in effect, abandon it or abandon a lot of its territory. That, too, is going to cause harm to American national interest. It's been a very difficult period. People have had to grit their teeth while criticizing Biden because ultimately, even though he's doing it poorly, Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty and protecting it, and inferentially NATO and stability in Europe, is still worth fighting through that incompetence.
All right, so you've got a lot of things going on right now. You have the Swedes passing out pamphlets saying here's what to do in the event of nuclear war. You have the U.S. missiles now that can reach about 190 miles into Russia. That doesn't get you all the way to Moscow, but it gets you pretty close. And then you have this new threat by Vladimir Putin of using nuclear weapons. In terms of stockpiles, U.S. had about 1,500 warheads deployed. Russia, about the same, 100 more. U.S. stockpiles, 3,700. Russia stockpile, 4,500 nuclear weapons. Should we take Vladimir Putin seriously when he says now we're willing to use tactical nuclear weapons, we're changing our nuclear strategy?
Well, I think you've always got to take these comments seriously to the extent they need to be analyzed. But let's be clear what Russia's quote-unquote nuclear doctrine is. It is if the Russian homeland is threatened and it becomes necessary, they will use nuclear weapons and use them first. Let me tell you what the U.S. nuclear doctrine is. When the U.S. homeland is threatened and its use becomes appropriate, we will use nuclear weapons first. This is a rhetorical shift. It does not represent a substantial change in Russian nuclear policy, and it's essentially the same thing that we would do. We will protect the homeland. Along with every other threat Putin has made for the past 1,000 days, there has never been evidence that they've redeployed their rocket forces or their nuclear capable units. I think this is another bluff. And if people panic and react accordingly, as unfortunately the Biden administration has done on multiple occasions. The Russians get what they want for free.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.